That's when the church becomes real. The gospel becomes real.
Yeah.
People around you are dying. In Russia, the church is all but outlawed. All operations. It's considered a terrorist organization.
What?
Kick it in the overdrive.
How's the church doing over there now, bro? Didn't they like kick all the missionaries out? And like, what's the update, dog?
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. It's real bad. It's really sad. They it's shut down now, all but in name only. Some authorities are trying to keep things afloat over there, but there's no proselytizing allowed at all. And most of the young men have been drafted or they've run branches, and they only had like 3 stakes, but they're all shuttered. It's horrible. It's about as bad.
That's also why in the live stream we just recently had when we were talking about like deportation, and the church's stance on immigration and everything, I said, dude, there are so many different outliers here that nobody's considering so far. Yes, we all hate the violent criminals. Yes, they all need to go. But like, is the bishop, for example, dude, I knew a guy who used to be a mission president in the Ukraine who was literally getting families out of war zones with money in his own dime when the war in Ukraine all of a sudden broke out. And it's like, is the church really going to say, oh, this young man that just escaped getting drafted by Russia to go die in Ukraine, gotta send him back? You know what I'm saying? Like, what?
Well, it's one of those wars that you and Jacob, you love your wars. You guys just love war and borders and governments, right?
Well, no,
like,
I love wars. I love wars done my way because I'm not afraid to just glass the place.
I know.
Just glass it and it's done over.
Wars, if only they'd make me in charge of these wars, they'd be great wars.
Yeah, they would be, as Jordan Peterson said, the worst dictators are the ones that think, if only I were in charge.
I know. You and Jacob could just run it. I know you guys would run it right. I know you would.
I would just run it like Alma. I would just run it like Alma. Defensive ramparts, bro. Defensive ramparts.
Sure. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, dude.
No, it's pretty rough over there. One of my mission companions fled Mariupol, which was bombed to dust. And we didn't know where he was if he got out, and he made it. He actually had to flee into Russia, which is not where you want to go. So we don't know. I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's been drafted now and he's fighting, but it's real, man. Like, it's real. There's real horrible things going on. Like, that's when the church becomes real. The gospel becomes real. Yeah. People around you are dying. There's a war going on. Like, you are, like, your elders quorum president, like, hey, we need help moving a couch. No, now it's like, we need to get so-and-so out of this apartment building because it fell on top of them after it was bombed. Come clean up rubble. See if we can identify some bodies. That's your elders quorum activity. I mean, it's crazy over there, and the church is trying to make do with what it can. And
well, has the church been outlawed? Or in
Russia, the church is all but outlawed, and it exists as a legal entity, on paper, but all operations. It's considered a terrorist organization.
What?
And, yeah, and so it has to. So it can still, like, well, if it's trying to convert people, it's trying to proselytize. It falls under a terrorist recruitment law that Putin dreamed up. And so they have to take off their tags. They can't preach to anybody. It's all very underground. It's horrible,
but if you're a baptized member, so I'm sure the KGB has long had the roles of members of that American church as they perceive it, right? So, yeah. I mean, are there like no-knock raids by dark fellows in the middle of the night? Because like when I lived in Argentina, we called them the Desaparecidos. During the military junta, if you were found inside of, if like they took your day planner with your telephone number, contacts list, and everything like that in the 70s, and they found out, oh, you'd been to one communist rally in college in 1972, they would literally go in there and
Yeah.
they would look up every appointment you'd had in the past 2 weeks, and they go kidnap that person in the middle of the night. And then they go kidnap everybody in their list. And you'd literally have hundreds of young men and young women just disappearing in the middle of the night. And then they pop up in mass graves somewhere, and their mothers would have to march on the state capitol, demand rights to at least even know if their children were alive or dead. And yeah, they're called Las Madres de los Desaparecidos, or the mothers of the disappeared ones. And
Holy cow.
Oh yeah.
Well, in Russia, it's the same deal, except those mass graves are on the Ukrainian front. Right? They find out that I've had investigators in my home. I've had refugees in my home, and they're like, one day my wife, she was a ballerina. She wore a rainbow colored dress for some dance. Well, they thought it was LGBT, so they labeled her a terrorist, and they were going to draft the husband to the front and, put them all in jail. And so they fled to Cuba and then Mexico and then America. And they're here as refugees for wearing a rainbow dress, because she wore a rainbow dress. That's it. And I mean, that's one story, and they got to flee. So if you're there right now, they're on the front lines of the Ukrainian war. There are Russian soldiers who are LDS boys who wanted to go on a mission. And because they wanted to go on a mission, the Russian government said, "Oh, you're able-bodied young man, to the front with you, and you belong to a terrorist religion. Let's go to the front." And they're fighting on the front lines right now. It's horrible. It's horrible. I don't think many members of the church realize how real that is, because there are members on both sides of this war right now, and it's just dreadful.
That is just hard. So do the families have contact with them? Is it like what?
A lot. Yeah. I mean, you can call. Russian soldiers were calling their parents a lot and talking, "Hey, how you doing?" But they were giving away intelligence information that the Ukrainians were using in the war, and same thing with Ukrainians to their mothers and things. And so communication has kind of been stopped up. But what was I going to say? It's tough to watch. It's really hard to watch. I know that it's horrible when, whichever side you side with and you wish won't get killed.
Which dictator with a bad accent do we love in this one?
I mean, both sides are being turned into murderers and killers, and the murdered. It's just horrible.
Oh, dude, I got to tell you, everything I see, okay, so here's the deal. Like, I'm no fan of Putin, but also I'm no fan of Zelensky. Like, what the Ukrainians are doing with drones, I think is a motherfucking war crime, dude. Like the kind of mental terror that must be like, I don't know. It's gross and it's inhumane. And it's like, I get that all is fair in love and war and so on and so forth. But it's like, there is some demonic shite going on over there that is not normal. Okay. And it's odd. This is a war where, like, I can't find myself rooting for anybody. It's like, oh yeah, let's root for, Zelensky. Oh, you want a victory? Oh, victory for who? The guy that murdered all of his political opposition and like took over every single media outlet, killed journalists, like what? Oh, he's good. Because what, Putin bad? Like, and it just, I don't know.
Well, I mean, and whatever people think politically, that's the thing about war, is everybody loses. Everyone loses.
I don't know. No, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There's bad actors that, like, what? So we should have just let the Germans bomb during the Battle of Britain, just England into just smithereens.
Germany didn't bomb us.
Okay,
they didn't bomb us.
I'm going to spare you the social. I'm going to spare you the
hey,
social.
You want to run a war like Alma and Captain Moroni? Okay, show me the American city that was bombed by the Germans.
Actually, what's funny is some people say that's a red pill that the world's not ready to swallow, that America shouldn't have gotten involved in World War II. Which
what people do is they conflate the sacrifices that the soldiers are making with higher view political opinions. It's like, no, look, the soldiers are that's not at all what we're talking about. We're talking about the old gray-haired fat guys sitting in their offices in state capitals, sending young men off to die. And it's like, why don't you guys fight your own wars?
Yeah, over their own caprices.
Yeah. Instead, you send fertile, productive, wide-eyed young men to die for what? For your political ideals that they never signed up for?
Like the aristocracy in World War I that wanted to settle scores using all of
exactly.
Yeah.
But the real pill that you need to swallow, Cardin, is that every war is World War I. Every war is all these aristocrats saying, no, this time's justified. No, trust us. This time's justified. Okay. It's every war. And more young people die.
So after the towers got ousted in 9/11, we should have just taken it.
Who bombed 9/11? Did Iraq bomb 9/11?
9/11. We have to be specific.
That wasn't Iraq. That wasn't Iraq that bombed us in 9/11, brother.
There were WMD.
Because this time it's worth it, man. Because this time you don't understand. Like, it's not World War I. No. This time. Every time it's this time.
Okay, so I don't want to embarrass you in this part of the argument, but I do want to return really fastly though, because we are getting sidetracked.
When the Africans take over the Q-15, I'm all for it.
Well, no, with the Russians, with the Russians, like, have they just reached a point where they're just mandatory draft of everybody? Because I know they've lost over like 1 million young men or something absurd like that.
1 million casualties. Now that's not dead. That's unable to fight. So that could be anything from you're a pink mist to you lost a pinky. So that's 1 million casualties, but that's a ton of casualties. Remember, the United States, in all its wars ever fought, has had about 1 million casualties. All of them combined since 1776, right? We lost what, 600,000 in the Civil War, and then all our other wars combined is another 600,000. That's about 1.2 million casualties in the history of the United States. Russia's lost that in 3 years in Ukraine. It's bananas.
Wow.
It's absolute bananas. It's just meat waves being mowed down. It's absolutely crazy. And then Ukraine has lost, 600, 700,000. It's insane. Those numbers are crazy.
Yeah, is the church able to do anything to help in the aftermath there? Or is it just neutered because it's been declared a terrorist organization by Putin?
The church, so in Western Ukraine and in Romania, right over the border.
Has Zelensky, the dictator Zelensky, outlawed the church too?
No, not at all.
Oh yeah, because he's getting us to fund everything from his paychecks to his bombs. No, there's a train. People don't realize this. We have run out of ammunition, American-made ammunition, so badly that we're purchasing it from Mexico to give it to Ukraine. There's a train that passed by my house for like 6 months straight that was just full of ammunition for the war in Ukraine. It was just full of ammunition, like boxcars of this stuff. So,
hey, but this is the time. But this is worth it this time. Hey.
No, these are boomer wars, bro. These are boomer wars.
I know, every war's a boomer war.
Yeah.
When is a war not a boomer war? They're all boomer wars. For somebody who loves war, you sure hate all the waste and murder that goes along with it,
Well, no, I think that there are some wars that are justified. Crusades, for example. Okay, you know what I'm saying?
1096, Pope Innocent.
You know what I'm saying? Well, the American Revolution. You think we should not have fought the American Revolution?
So, the American Revolution is not what many people think the American Revolution was. The American Revolution, we had how many casualties did we have in the American Revolution?
Oh, so now all of a sudden you're not a pacifist because the American
Wait a minute. The American Revolution, they literally were dragging us out of our homes and killing us. When has there ever been a war like the American Revolution?
Okay, so you're for war if it's defensive and on your own soil?
If it's on my soil. It's in Montana. It's in Montana.
Okay, so China has been executing wild cyber warfare on us for 25 years. They're actually effectively able to shut down the Seattle grid with a virus that showed it as shut down without actually really being shut down as a way of saying, look at you, we got you, right? So let's just say Chinese cyber hackers were able to shut down the grid in all of Washington, causing untold deaths from who knows how many hospitals shut down, people on respirators, this and that. Would then you think we are justified to go to war with China if they were able to murder people via shutting down the mainframe of the electrical grid?
Nope. Not gonna get me.
No?
Get a wood burning stove. I'm not gonna go drive a bayonet through some stranger's chest because some old gray-haired stranger is having a fight with some other old gray-haired stranger.
But maybe a tactical hypersonic smart missile strike on the Kremlin of China. Would that be then justified if you knew that you could?
No, not doing it. Not doing it.
But you had intel that you knew the gray-haired old man.
What are we so worried about? We're all dead in 50 years anyways. You're mad because it's a little sooner? You're going to commit murder because it's a little sooner. No, I don't get that. I don't get that math. We're all dead anyways. So we're going to go commit murder on perfect strangers.
No, they're not perfect strangers. You know that Xi Jinping, who ordered the cyber attack, and his 50 buddies that are now laughing, ha, 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 ha. We screwed the Americans. And 100 people died in Washington because of the cyber attack on the mainframe of the electrical grid. And you're the president of the United States, and they come to you and they say, you know what? We know exactly where he is right now. There's a train southbound from Shanghai to Laos or whatever, and he's in the 5th car of this luxury edition train, and we could end this thing right now with an authorized smart missile strike straight right on top of his head. He won't even know what hit him, but we will announce the next day, this is what happens if you hurt American citizens.
Nope. Never
so you
doing
just
it.
let him
Not
get away
happen.
with killing 100 people on
Kill
the
away.
electrical grid.
Kill away. Kill away. Look, mosquitoes kill more than all y'all combined, all right? We're all dead in 50 years anyways. It's not my kids. If it's my family, sure. Different conversation.
Okay.
But it's some strangers in some newspaper reported by some old gray-haired journalist that somebody needs to pay for the murder of da-da-da. No, I'm not playing that game. Not playing that game.
Okay, fair enough. Well, you've reached the logical conclusion of your essence, and you stuck to it, so I respect that.
Sorry, wait, they're under my flag? Wait. Oh, so the people under that flag, I don't care about. The people under this flag, though, I commit murder on their behalf. No, I don't care whose flag. It's not my flag. No, I'm not committing murder for your flag.
So was Nephi wrong?
What?
When he smote off the head of Laban?
No, that was worth 100 Laban heads. That was super based.
That was super based. Okay, so then just the last question before we move on is the church able to help in any way? I mean, it looks like it's been outlawed in Russia. Of course, they're loving it in the Ukraine because they love anything American right now because America's paying all their bills. But like, is the church able to do anything? I mean, how do you even communicate when your whole entire church has been? How many members are there? Are there 10,000 members in Russia? 1,000
in Russia?
100,000? How many members are there in Russia?
Gosh, heavens, no. 100,000? No way. When I was there, it was less than 10. Yeah, in 2022, it's 5,000 members.
Okay, that's about equivalent to Poland.
So the highest that it ever reached was 20,000, and then it is now cratered because of the war down to 5. See, most members of the church in Russia and in most countries have connections with the West. They know a missionary. They probably speak a little English. And so if something like this happens in Russia, they're going to call every missionary, every mission president, everybody.
We would take them.
And they're going to.
I mean, you've got refugee ballerina girl in your living room. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
They'd say, please get me out of here. And so they're the more connected of the populace. Just if you're a member of the church, you become connected to the West, and they buy the propaganda less easily than their neighbors do, because their neighbors are, still hate the West. They don't speak any English. They think we're a cult. And so Putin says, they're all a cult. And they're like, yeah. But if they're a member of the church, they're going to be much more amenable to like, wait a minute, am I being told the truth
I've met these Americans, and some of them are stupid and some of them are kind of loudmouths, but like they're farm boys. Right. They're not, I mean.
And that's the hardest thing, is that people that I know who you feel the spirit with and you serve with, to have them buy the propaganda is crazy. And, and you can't say, you can't talk to them. Like at the outset of the war, communication on Facebook was like filtered and monitored. Now it's gone. Now it's just gone. But back then it was, filtered, and you'd try to say to people like, you don't understand what's going on. Like, do you know what's happening? And only certain messages would get through, and you have no idea what they're reading. There was one guy who was a very good friend of mine, and I thought, this has got to be a bot. This has got to be a bot. This can't be him. He can't be buying this stuff. And I actually asked him, I said, if you are who you claim to be, what was the name of this guy's dog back in 2003 that we both knew? Tell me the name of that dog. I don't believe you're you. And he knew the name. It was actually him. And I thought, oh my gosh, like they really are completely brainwashed. Even some of the members that you knew and loved and stuff, that's the hardest thing.
What are they brainwashed into believing? That like just
into
the West
believing
is degenerate or what?
That the West is evil, that Ukraine is run by Nazi Jews, Jewish Nazis. Okay. And America is all degenerate, and and they've been waging a shadow war against us for decades, and crazy things like they're taking out children and they're butchering them in the fields, and they're using them in experiments, and they're taking them back to America, and they're castrating them, and they're selling them into slavery, and everyone's a part of it. And you're like, whoa, it's Alex Jones type level, like easy, like that's like baseline.
Well, it's like Alex Jones type level, except for just not ends up being true 6 months later.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff. And you're like, okay, but that's not real. I mean, they thought the war was over. I mean, they thought, you remember the Japanese soldiers who were like still on the islands years later thinking that they were still fighting for the emperor, after World War II, like 20 years later, they're still in some hole, thinking the war's still going on. That's everybody in Russia. That's the whole stinking nation. And they have no idea what's happening in Ukraine. They have no idea what's happening to their economy in the rest of the world. And they did, before the war began, they kind of did. There was information that kind of floated around, and it clapped down so hard with the war. They had to control information because it went so horribly bad. They thought Kiev would fall in 3 days. It didn't. It was a massive blunder for Putin. And so they had to start controlling the information. And so there was this crazy lockdown of the flow of information like they haven't had since 1989. It was just crazy. And it happened all over the place with social media and with direct communication. And now they're just in a hole. They're just in the dark, and they don't know what's going on in the world. And they can't say, there's some people who know that the war is a complete debacle, but they can't say anything because there'll be a van will pull up, put a bag over their head, and drive them out to the front. And so Russia keeps people from communicating with each other, because if people knew how many other people dissented against the war, you'd have a revolution. And so they can't let these people communicate.
Are they allowed
to,
to meet for Sunday services?
No.
I'd assume that would be.
Heavens no.
Well,
no
are all religions, or is it just the unique, like the J-Dubs, the Mormons, the Catholics?
J-Dubs, Mormons, Hare Krishnas, no way. You're not a chance.
Is the Greek Orthodox Church allowed to? I'm not the Greek. Sorry, the Eastern Orthodox Church allowed to, or is it just
Pravoslavny? The Russian Orthodox Church is allowed. Yeah, they're allowed to be, and they had to declare, or early on in the war, they were like, "Whoa, you're going to war with Ukraine?" Like, because half of them are Russian Orthodox.
Yeah,
and Putin had to be like, pick a side, and so the patriarch of the Pravoslavny Church had to come out and be like, yeah, all Ukrainians are super evil Nazi Jews, and cut off ties with that. And so they broke off. Now Ukraine is celebrating Christmas on the 25th. Ukraine is changing Santa Claus to wear red instead of blue, trying to differentiate from the Russian Orthodox Church, trying to do things to distance itself. They're starting to, instead of reading in Old Church Slavonic and Bulgarian, they're starting to read in modern Ukrainian. Like they're trying to distance themselves from their old religion.
Do you think that okay, so the Anglican Church in America is the Church of England in England, correct?
I think it's Episcopalian.
Or yeah, whatever that is. So is there a schism happening in the Russian Orthodox Church between the Ukrainian version and the Russian version that's already enough where they're two separate entities? Or do you think that's an inevitable conclusion or what?
Yeah. So a ton of Ukrainians, I mean, they are Russians. Like it would be like America going to war with Canada. You know, you have a cousin, you have a sister-in-law or whatever who's Canadian. It's insane. Like, you speak the same language, you eat the same foods, you watch the same sports teams. I mean, every Russian had a cousin in Ukraine, and religion was cross-border. And
yeah, I served in Argentina.
Church,
I had a Russian Book of Mormon that I would carry around in Buenos Aires because there were so many Ukrainian and Russian refugees. And we actually had a Ukrainian-speaking Sunday school. When we would do in Castellano Spanish, the main meeting, but if you were in the capital city, afterwards we would break into 4 different Sunday schools. There would be the regular Castellano Sunday school, a Ukrainian and Russian Sunday school, a Portuguese speaking Sunday school, and then an English speaking Sunday school for the executives that had come down, and there were some Canadian and American executives and their families that had just English speaking Sunday schools. Like,
wow, that's wild.
Yeah, that is nuts. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely familiar with the interconnectedness of the Ukrainians and the Russians. But okay, last question then, is there an end in sight on this? Now, I get that that's tied to the geopolitical war, and I don't know if anybody actually has a good feel on whether there's an end in sight, but is there any signs of like the Russian government realizing, okay, these people aren't freaking spies? Because, like, for example, when I was in Argentina, it's this myth that has existed since the 50s, since Che Guevara was shot, that missionaries are, you're going to laugh, but this has been yelled in my face. Okay, you're going to laugh. But there's a conspiracy theory that the American missionaries are spies from the CIA or the FBI who are trying to steal agricultural trade secrets, especially trade secrets about how their honey is so sweet.
Oh,
yes.
Man, that's how
I'm not kidding you. That has been yelled point blank in my face. Okay, that has been yelled point blank.
That sweet Argentinian honey.
¡Sos de la CIA! ¡Estás robando y mintiendo! ¡Venís acá para averiguar cómo está tan dulce la miel! You know what I'm saying? And like, it's you're just like, whoa, okay, hold on, lady.
Yeah.
I promise.
In Russia, there was a news article that came when I was there. This is 20 years ago. A news article that came out that said that people they got a knock on the door and they said, "Oh, it's the Mormon missionaries," and they opened the door and they very quickly poked him with a needle and like sedated them or something, and they all fainted, and then they like took all their stuff. And so if you open the door even to crack, even a little crack, then they could get you. They're going to get you. And so people would tell us, everybody knew this story, you know, and they're like, "Oh, you can't open, not even a crack to those guys. You can't even do it. You can't even do it." And so we're like, what? Geez, people don't even open, you know, to anybody to be friendly. They're like, "Oh, hello." But you say that you're an LDS missionary and they're like, don't open the handle. And you'd hear them arguing. You can't, you know, pull the handle because, you know, they'll take a kolik, they'll take a syringe and they'll get you with their, I forget what would they, some narcotic. They'll pump you full of narcotic and it'll make you brainwashed or whatever. And so that was CIA, FBI. I remember a woman on the bus stop, just a sweet woman with fur coat, sitting there cold at the bus stop, just turning and looking me dead in the eye and just be like, "I hate you." I'm like, "Oh, do I know you?" You know, they hated it. Many people hated us over there. Yeah, they all thought we were CIA, FBI, you know, except the Mafia. Mafia loved us. Mafia were good to us. Man, when I pray for the war to end, I'm also like, you know what? And bless those Mafia guys, okay? Because they were awesome dudes.
Wait, why was the Mafia good to you, bro?
They were good because when the communists took over, they were the government. They were the law enforcement. And so they hated lawbreakers and they hated religion. And so somehow over the years, all the mafia in Russia and the underground like believers mixed together. And so the mafia are hyper religious. They're very, very religious guys in a country that is very secular. They're all self-declared atheists. And the mafia is really, really religious. And so in my first apartment over there in Vzliotku 57 or something, you go down to the bottom floor and there was always a guy in a suit. And whenever we'd walk out, he'd stand up and he'd kind of open the door. And one time I asked my comp, I'm like, who is that guy? And he's like, oh, he's from the mafia. All the apartments that we rent are all mafia owned buildings. They own buildings or whatever. And they always have this nice young man in a suit in the bottom of the padiez, the bottom of the stairwell or whatever, because the mafia love us over there because they're like, hey, you know, we're brothers in Christ, and they're all hyper religious. And the government hates us and the government hates them. So, you know, enemy of my enemy is my friend type of deal. But yeah, they're cool. Mafia are nice guys. They're good guys, cold-blooded killers, but also nice. So, yeah.
Jeez. Okay, so
Yeah.
then I know I've said last question like 10 times, but I'm just
It's fine.
I can't.
I'm not an expert on anything, by the way. You know, I'm commenting on geopolitics.
But you understand the reality of the culture on the ground. That's what we can't get in the news. We can't get in the news. You just get, you know, and anybody that says, "Oh, America's got propaganda," it's like, well, at least we get propaganda from both sides. You know,
people, you don't understand.
Yeah, you
America's
have no idea.
propaganda. You have no idea. Like,
yeah,
Russian propaganda is thick. It is so you can't even imagine. Everybody over there, they know they lost their faith. Their big religion was the state. That was their religion. They were going to conquer the world. Communism was going to be the dream, the utopia. And when it crumbled, an entire nation of people collectively lost their identity overnight. And it was catastrophic to their psyche. And now they don't know who they are. And so they're deeply susceptible to conspiracy theory way before it was cool. Like, way before it was cool. I mean, you think Alex Jones is on the fringe? Alex Jones is on every corner in Russia. They are hyper conspiracy theorists. And then the government loves it because the government wants to be like, yeah, you're right. All your problems are the fault of those Americans. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Who was it, the philosopher who said, if you lose your faith in God, it's not that you don't believe in anything. It's that you will believe anything. Now you'll believe anything. You're lost. You're a ship at sea being tossed to and fro. And they're all like that. They just lose their moorings. And so you can convince them of it. And so propaganda it's like a match to dry straw over there. But there's many, many Russians but that's the other thing. They lose faith in their media. They don't trust anyone or anything. Somebody once said, in Russia, to believe in God means you're foolish, but to believe in aliens means you're normal. Like, everybody believes in alien abductions down the street all the time. Like, it's a given. It's a given. But you believe in God? You're crazy. What are you talking about? It's really really weird, really different.
So what?
And
oh, sorry. Keep going.
I mean, yeah. And so that makes them, so there's a lot of Russians who oppose the war. A lot of them do. A huge amount of them do. But they can't communicate with each other. If they could, they'd see how many of them are out there. But as soon as somebody pronounces any kind of dissent on Telegram, that's the website that they can still kind of use, that they're trying to lock down. If they show any kind of dissent towards the government, they're quickly shut down. Not because the government's afraid of that voice or the truth they're going to say or whatever. They don't want other people knowing that there's fellow dissenters, because they might realize, wait a minute, we're just letting like one crime family in Moscow like kill millions of us. Why the heck are we letting this happen? Right? And they'd catch on to it. So
what's
the information is all clamped down.
Okay, so I get the problem, and just like my heart sinks hearing this.
It's horrible. It's really tough. It's really sad.
It's like just such. You hear Americans talk about, oh, dude, it's a psyop. This is all a psyop, because some MSNBC video they didn't like in their feed came up on. They voluntarily opened an app and saw a TikTok, and all of a sudden they think they've been propagandized. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
it's a psyop.
It's like they'll call anything a psyop, dude. But like, that's a psyop. Okay. Like what Russia's doing to its own people is a psyop, right? But my question is like, what's the fix? Like, what's the fix? Because earlier on in the podcast, we were talking about how the only fix to the French Revolution was the people that were guillotined the last of the guys that was guillotining.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was the only way that the French Revolution ever came to an end. I don't know what a fix is for a system where God can't pull them out of it, because belief in God has effectively been vilified to such a degree where you're just like, okay, this is untenable, right? And there's no real apparatus of faith, because it seems like from what you're describing that the Russian Orthodox Church is widely perceived as just an arm of the government now, right?
Yes, rightly so, because it totally is.
Okay, so if you can't have faith in the church, you can't have faith in the state. You don't necessarily have faith in the mafia, but you at least fear it. What's the fix? Forget, because Russia was beautiful. People don't realize it had problems with poverty around the 1800s, and the Tsar did some bad things. Their royalty did definitely some bad jerk royalty 1800s garbage, right? But there's other European countries that got out of that without just descending into utter vodka-fueled, Holodomor riddling, Stalin suppressing communism of literally almost nearly an entire continent. So, like, what's the fix? How can Russia get out of this? Is there a role the church can play in that fix?
Well, I tell my kids, and I'm not a geopolitical expert, but I've been following Russia for a long time, and it's near and dear to my heart.
Give yourself more credit, bro. Credit. You've lived there more than half of the idiots in the Washington Post and the New York Times that are reporting on it. I know you love Robert Zeihan. I swear you've been there longer than he has in 10 lifetimes. So,
but I tell my kids, I say, you will live to see the Balkanization of Russia. You'll live to see the essentially the dissolution of the Russian Federation. People don't realize, like, Russia is actually a very diverse country. It's got lots of different nationalities in there, and they're tight knit. The Dagestanis and the Kazakhs, the Buryats, the Yakuti, the Evenki, like, they've got lots of different nationalities there. They've got a ton of Armenians there, huge immigrant populations in cities and things, very, very, very strong. The southern part of Russia is very, very Muslim. They do not like Putin.
Oh, really?
Really? So what my prediction is, someday Putin has to die. He's going to die, whether old age or whatever. And when that happens, there's going to be a power vacuum because he doesn't have any second in command. Lavrov is also going to go. So he doesn't have any second in command. When that happens, there's going to be a power vacuum, and you're going to see Kadyrov, or you're going to see somebody else who's a strong man, governor of a province, one of the southern provinces that is Muslim, and they're going to say, wait, why are we listening to you people anyways? And they're going to declare independence. Or they're going to try to take over. There's going to be fighting factions, and you'll see essentially the Balkanization because, Vladivostok is connected to Moscow over how many thousands of miles of rail? That's it. That is it. And at one point, the people wake up and they're like, wait, why are we letting this guy send our children off to die? Why are we listening to this? And I think it'll be a power vacuum upon Putin's death. And that'll start the Balkanization of Russia. And it'll be really sad. And it's going to be horribly violent. It's going to be awful. But I think that's probably what's going to happen. And you'll see the dissolution of the Russians don't reproduce. They don't reproduce anymore. If they come to the West, they might still have some children. But Russia's population has been on decline for decades. Mass abortions under communism.
Oh, no, really?
Oh, yeah, huge. Yeah, big.
Why? Is it because it can't be just feminism. We're like, yay, abortion, because Christians don't like it. I'm going to go get pregnant just so I can have one. There was some, they were kind of feminists. There was some feminism there, like women need to get in the workforce too type of culture back in the 60s and 70s stuff. Interviewing people for baptism was hard because
many women there had abortions. And if you've had an abortion, you need kind of extra interviews and things. And so many times you'd be interviewing a woman, she'd say, "Oh, well, I got an abortion." People think that that was only in China under Mao was the mass abortion one child policy, but they had a similar thing going on in Russia. And then, in order to try to reverse it, they tried to incentivize fertility with the Slava Materinskaya Slava, like an award. Actually, I have one on my wall that my parents got for my sweet wife. It's the Order of Motherly Glory, and it's a pin, and it says for having lots of children just in support of the motherland, and they would try to incentivize by giving awards because they saw their population was cratering.
Okay, we need that in the LDS church. We need that. We need that in the LDS church.
Here, want me to go get it?
Dude, yeah. Dude, are you kidding me? Go grab that. Yeah, dude. All right, let's see this thing, bro.
Okay, so this is the Order of Maternal Glory for Heroine Mother First Class, decreed 8th of July,
Heroine Mother First Class. That is, dude, go Charlotte. Okay.
And you can see it's Materinskaya Slava, SSSR. It's got the hammer and the sickle on there and a mother holding her children. And I met people with these awards. They couldn't afford to eat, but they're like, look at my awards. And they'd have all these medals, But they try to do that to incentivize fertility because they killed their population. And so now, Russians their population's been in decline for a long time. Emigration added to that means that Russia's just dwindling, and it's really tragic. But in this century, you'll see the collapse of Russia as a federation. And
and just think, you're going to look back and you're going to think, what damage communism did. Over what, 150 years?
Tons, yeah. Well, besides 125 million corpses, but
jeez, that.
But it still reverberates today. Alcoholism rampant because an entire 180 million people lost their identity overnight. It was supposed to save them. It was supposed to be, we are competing with the West. We are going to win, and then all of a sudden, it wasn't.
Hey, nihilism is wokeism, bro. And wokeism is communism, Yeah.
Yes. And it's just this nihilism that it's so tragic. And people, they drink themselves to death. Women have to run the whole country because the men are kind of non-starters, and they drink, and it's a whole nation of people who've lost hope. And so the church comes in and tries to say, and finds the few who are, willing to believe in something. And it's amazing. And they are bright and happy, and they walk down the street and they smile, and they're just the most godly people in the world when they embrace the gospel. And you wish you could give it to all of them. I had a teacher in the MTC, Barat Makarov, who, we talked about this towards the end of our 13-week stint in the MTC. And he said, my country, he says, thank you for going to my country. He says, no economic policy, no, great political movement is going to save my country. Only the gospel of Jesus Christ will save my country. And he's a Russian, so he doesn't lightly cry. And he just wept. He's like, thank you for going to preach to my people. It's the only thing that'll save my people is the gospel. And so it's tragic, man, but we're in the end days. We're in the end times. And what's coming for Russia is coming for China. What's coming for China is coming for us. If people don't have more babies, that's why I wear, this is really the way out here. This shirt that I'm wearing is
What's
repenting.
It say?
Repent.
Oh, it doesn't have like a yellow scythe and hammer underneath the red communist part. It doesn't have that.
I don't know.
No. Okay.
I'm not a geopolitical expert. All I know is my experience. I've loved Russia for decades. I have a degree in Russian, and I've spent a lot of time over there. And I read Russian literature, and I love it. It's near and dear to my heart, but it's so tragic. And I know people are mad about this side of the war or that side of the war. There's young men who don't know why they're fighting, who are being tricked into picking up guns, and they're dying on both sides. And it's horribly tragic. And the best thing that, and so be a peacemaker, pray for peace. It's an awful thing. And don't get caught into otherizing people and thinking they're the enemy or they're bad or whatever. It breaks my heart to see the violence over there, because they're nice people. They're good people. And so
Okay. Usually I much more enthusiastically say for this and more, please go to wardradio.com. But I'm ready to go just drown myself in vodka right now. I don't drink, but I'm about to start.
Yeah, they're big into that. Woo! Hey, actually, a fun story to end on. I baptized in a frozen river when I was over there, and I come walking out, and it's so cold that it's going to freeze your clothes to your skin, right? And it'll rip your skin off. And so all the babushki, all the grandmas in the branch there, all these like old sweet Mormon ladies come hobbling over with big bottles of vodka in their hands. And I'm like, what the heck is this? I'm in a rap video. They're like walking with these huge bottles of vodka, and they pour the vodka all over your clothes because it lowers the freezing temperature and it thaws out the ice. Because water will freeze, but alcohol won't. And so they pour vodka all over your clothes. So I'm standing there, I'm like, what the heck is going on? And all these ladies are pouring vodka all over. I'm like, what in the world? So, yeah.
That is an awesome. You just turned a baptism into a freaking rap music video.
It was
getting
so
poured,
weird.
vodka bottles getting poured all over you post baptism. That is epic.
All these like hobbled over like old Mormon women are like, oh, come here. They got these huge patron, like these huge things of vodka. They're pouring them all over. It's really weird.
Jeez.
Okay.
All right. For this and more, please check us out at wardradio.com.